Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about how game journalists are now apparently so desperate that they're trying to link Arch from the Archcast as well as Sargon of Akkad to Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, really. The article in question is from Gamer.no, a Norwegian gaming journalist website, and therefore has admittedly been put through Google Translation. But the translated title of this article is Epstein, Culture War, and the Eternal Gamergate. The culture war that has ravaged the internet worldwide must be seen in a whole new light. And yes, as you could probably tell by the title, this article does indeed try to link Epstein to Gamergate. It also tries to link 4chan and anyone else it can with Epstein as well, for the record. In fact, this fairly lengthy article comes across more as the ravings of another conspiracy theorist nutcase on the far left. The sort of delusional moron who would try to tell you that destiny is somehow a centrist. An individual who has gone on record openly inciting violence against Republicans by saying that Republicans should be made to be in fear for their lives whenever they're out in public. And by the way, he said this right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Yeah, according to people on the far left, destiny is a centrist, don't you know? That's just what centrism looks like these days. But getting back to this very lengthy article, what's amusing is that even though, naturally, both Arch and Sargon of Akkad do not actually show up in the Epstein files, for reasons that should be patently obvious to anyone capable of cognizant thought, the article still tries to hand-wave that away, stating, quote, "Again, there is no evidence that Carl Benjamin or Arch had links to Epstein, but in context, that is not important. Steve Bannon saw the connection between Gamergate's politics of discontent, big politics in general, and how the first could influence the second. And whether we're talking about hard politics, elections, or soft politics culture, Bannon was right. Of the Gamergaters, he said, you can activate that army, they come through Gamergate or whatever, and are drawn towards politics and Trump." And because the article links Epstein to Steve Bannon, that somehow means that Epstein was really behind all of this grand conspiracy to radicalize gamers in order to get Trump elected. We'll leave aside the fact that by the time Gamergate happened, Epstein and Trump were enemies of one another, to the point that Trump was one of the first major figures to try to help put Epstein behind bars. So the idea that Epstein was somehow the mastermind behind putting Trump into office is very laughable. But even outside that, the sheer fact that this article is trying to smear people like Arch and Sargon of Akkad by doing everything it can to try to link their history on YouTube to Epstein's money is frankly disgusting. Oh sure, it tries to make that link indirectly rather than directly, but it is still at the end of the day uttering their names together and saying openly that them not having any direct links is not important in this context, because it drew an indirect link from Epstein to Steve Bannon to Gamergate, and then that way to Sargon of Akkad and Arch. This is quite easily one of the very worst smear articles I have seen in a very long time, but it is also one of the most desperate smear articles I've seen in a very long time as well. And desperation is a word that well suits it, because it tries desperately and flailingly to link anyone and everyone it can to Jeffrey Epstein, no matter how ridiculous or absurd the supposed connection may be. All to try to present a grand conspiracy that a rich Jewish man was responsible for the rise of Gamergate, the rise of the far right, and the rise of Trump. That this was all part of his grandiose plan. It is truly astounding how little self-awareness was presented by Andreas Bjornbeck, the writer of this article, because this article managed to be an excellent example of projection. After writing this article, Andreas Bjornbeck might as well rename himself to Quisling.